What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my way too early 2024 interior defensive line rankings. So we're going to talk about the big uglies in the middle of the defensive line, going 5 up to 1, and then I'm going to be 5 honorable mentions. And then later on this week, I'm planning on having my edge rankings out. Got to play a little catch up here as we're getting really close to the start of college football and the NFL season alike. So hopefully you guys are excited. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe if you're new, if you want to get more 2024 draft coverage in your life. And of course, let me hear your way too early interior defensive line rankings down below in the comments section. Who you got at number 1? How's that rest of that list play out 2 down to 5? Then maybe who are some of the names I should have had in the honorable mentions that I left out? Love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. Let's go ahead and jump right into it with Rook Ororo, which hands down got to be one of the best names that we're going to get out of this draft class. There's a lot of great names, honestly, but Ororo almost sounds like something that you would hear from a Scooby-Doo episode as he's trying to talk to Shaggy, but really, as you can see, I got some notes on the screen, but 6'4", 295, former defensive end recruit, and because of that, Clemson kind of moves him all around the defensive line. We've talked about that in the past with players like a Miles Murphy. Mostly he played on the edge, but Brian Brissy could kind of have some flexibility playing inside, playing a little bit out. Never-ending motor. I mean, this guy does not stop. I mean, stopping until the whistle blows, it might be a little bit of an understatement because I'm not saying he takes it too far, but I mean, the guy is not going to let up, not even for a split second before then. I like the arm length. He's got quick hands as well, good burst up the line of scrimmage. And coming off a year where he had his best run defense grade too at 76.5 using PFF stated there. So strong lower half, and I think we kind of saw that really come to fruition last year. Getting onto the negative, not necessarily the most fleet of foot laterally, and also his quickness with some of his pass rush moves, specifically like a swim move or a spin, could probably be a little bit quicker, but who knows, that might be cleaned up before we go into this upcoming season. So excited to see what adjustments maybe have been made there for him this upcoming season. And similar issue we've had with other Clemson defensive linemen like a Brzee, like a Murphy, and the other guys before that, KJ Henry, another one from last year's draft class. Expecting him to put up insane like ACC leading numbers in sacks and stops and hurries and all that stuff, it's just don't expect it. Don't expect it. For whatever reason, it just doesn't happen. But I think he has a lot of the tools to become a really solid prospect. And really, I should kind of give a disclaimer where I think this class is. Trezon Newton and Leonard Taylor, both. Newton probably would have been IDL 2 for me last year, just ahead of Kalijah Cansey, but probably would have been shoulder to shoulder. Leonard, we got to see what more of his upside looks like this upcoming season. He's got a small sample size. We'll talk about him later, but he's definitely got the upside to be a first-round interior defensive lineman. And then I think this class kind of has a lot of guys that I think teams are going to be happy about drafting on day 2. And that's kind of where I think really the strength of this IDL class is. There's some top-end talent, but nobody a freak like Jalen Carter. Really, it's guys that once you get to the 20 through 60 range, teams are going to be excited to draft and target a potential need there. Moving on to number 4, Mason Smith, 6'5", 300 pounds, former 5-star recruit, and dude, the athleticism more than shows. Played mostly defensive end back in 2021, which again I think speaks to the type of caliber of athlete we're talking about here. Has that flexibility to play inside and out. I prefer to see him play on the inside, especially since he's gained a little bit more weight, right around that 300-pound mark, maybe 305, 310 now, going into this season with LSU. Number 12 on Bruce Feldman's freak list last year, so kind of backing up that insane recruiting profile and that insane athleticism profile we've all kind of assumed he has. And from there, I think he's got all the traits. He's got the length, he's got the speed, he's got the agility to read and react and bounce around the line of scrimmage and find where the ball is. He's got all that. Getting over the negatives, it's just I don't know what to expect. He's only played 300 snaps, or he played 300 snaps in 2021 and then only played 8 before getting hurt in week 1 in 2022. So very, very little football that we've seen at the college level. Because of his size, sometimes leverage is an issue. And again, I don't even want to really talk about what we saw in 2022 because for all we know, that might have been the worst 8 snaps he could have had in the season. And then from there on, would have been just an absolute stud, took over the SEC. Like, we just don't know. So that's tough. And also, like, the fact that we're talking about him coming off an injury, at least it was early on in the season, so expectations should be that he's ready to go for this upcoming season. It shouldn't have any lingering concerns going into this season. I guess that's the one positive you could take out of that injury being so early on last year. But we're talking about a guy who played end, got hurt playing on the interior, and I just don't know what he's going to look like this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he has such a good season that we're talking about him as IDL 1. But he also might have a underwhelming season and go right back to college and play another year at LSU. Like, we just don't know what we're going to get. So I had to put him in the top 5 because dude has the talent. Dude has the trait. Easily could work his way into that first-round consideration. I just don't know what we're getting into. Then we get to Chris Jenkins Jr. From Michigan. Obviously, his dad's former NFL player for the Panthers and the Jets. and his dad was a mean run stopper, and you totally see that with Chris Jenkins Jr. And it's impressive because he kind of does it at 6'3", 305 is what Michigan has him listed at. If I had to guess, he's probably 6'2", and a half maybe, 290, 295. I think he's a little bit under what that listed weight is, but obviously we'll get those official measurements. But it does not stop him whatsoever. Like, this guy, his ability to read, react, anticipate plays, shoot gaps, like he learned everything his dad possibly could have taught him about how to become a high-level run defender, and he was one of the best in the country last year. We're actually going to talk about the guy who had the highest run blocking grade, but he did it at a smaller school, so honestly, for my money, Chris Jenkins, best run defender in college football for this interior defensive line group. And because he's maybe a little bit smaller, 6'2.5", we'll just say, this man is always the low man. This guy does not lose a leverage battle, which you'll hear me kind of harp on that with a handful of these guys. Some struggle with it. Some are really good at it. Jenkins, it's definitely a plus for him. And I could imagine he's got to be one of the most frustrating players for someone to play. If you're an opposing interior offensive lineman, it's like, hey, he's a little small. He's really fiery off the line of scrimmage. Got that quick burst. And because he is a little bit on the shorter side, I'm not even 6'2", so who am I to call him short? But he's not a monster at like 6'4", like Ruka Roro, or 6'5", like Mason Smith. But because he's on that shorter side, hey, he's going to fire into my chest. He's got a good punch, and he's quick off the line of scrimmage. And it's coming, and still offensive linemen struggle to slow him down. So even when you can kind of anticipate what Chris Jenkins is going to do, he's still better than you at it. And I think, leverage is really hard to kind of overcome, especially if you are quick and get that burst up the line of scrimmage. Kind of like what we talked about with Kalijah Cansey in the 2023 draft class. Getting over to his cons, there's a lot of work to still be done as a pass rusher. Like, he's definitely not refined there. When he does win as a pass rusher, it's more so quick burst off the line of scrimmage, finding a hole in between offensive linemen, and then just kind of squeaking through. So yeah, we need to see more in regards to both pass rush moves, but also pass rush like plan, how he's going to attack a defensive or interior offensive lineman rather. But I think, another year coaching at Michigan, wouldn't be surprised if that's not a concern this upcoming season. Maybe this is the offseason where he figured it out as a pass rusher. And then we're talking about him pretty comfortably, easily as a top 3 interior defensive lineman, in my opinion, because he's already got it there as a run defender. On to my top 2. So Leonard Taylor, coming off a year with an 87.3 overall PFF grade, which is elite, 85.5 pass rush grade, which again is elite, and then a more than serviceable run blocking or run defense grade at 79.5. So like, PFF grades last year across the board were fantastic. Was the number 111 overall recruit coming out of high school, and simply put, this guy has all the tools. Kind of like Mason Smith. There is not a missing component to his game. Size, 6'3", 305, and I legitimately think he kind of holds that. It's amazing to see him listed the same thing as Chris Jenkins, but then you watch them on tape, and it's like, I have a hard time thinking those two humans are the same size and weight and all that stuff. But he's got the strength, the size, the length, the speed, not only straight line, but laterally. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up taking a little bit more snaps there on the edge. He only had 11 2 years ago, 37 last year. If he got 50 snaps playing on the edge, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever, and I'd be really curious to see what that looks like, because I think he's got a little bit of bend, too. His cons, though, he's played 529 snaps in his career. So, yeah, he's looked really, really good so far, but he could have 800 snaps this year and have by far the most down year of his college career, and therefore we have a bigger sample size of him not being good versus a sample size of him being good. So that's tricky. Just don't know what we're going to get into this year. And a lot of the ways he wins, it's almost kind of like Greg Rousseau when he was at Miami, not to helmet scout, but Rousseau won because he was a good athlete and he was 6'7" with freaky arm length. And a lot of times he won on the inside. And Taylor already plays on the inside, so you can't really hold that against him. But he wins off his physical traits. He wins off, like, when you watch, especially in college, guys who are just better athletes, they're just more physically gifted than the guy that they're playing against. That's Leonard Taylor. Like, this guy, it's just not fair. It almost looks like you dropped him, not saying on a high school field, but for lack of a better argument or example to use, it's almost like just dropping him onto a high school field where it's like, this guy shouldn't be playing at this level. So you get some of that, and that's mostly what his pass rush wins look like. So I want to see this year. Can we get to see a little bit of a swim move develop? Can we get a spin move that we get to see more of this year? Because right now it's just kind of, I'm faster than you, I'm stronger than you, and then the one move maybe he does have is the push-pull, because he is so strong, he'll get to the chest of an offensive lineman, and then once they're on their heels, he'll just throw him to the side like a rag doll. That's about it. So I want to see those other moves kind of develop, and also a pass rush plan. Like, I want to see you show something and then kind of counter off it later on and kind of keep an offensive lineman on their toes. And then we get under number 1 guy, and I will say Taylor has the upside to pass Drazon Newton, or Johnny Newton, so I'm going to refer to him throughout the rest of this video. But right now, I think Johnny Newton's the most NFL ready of any of these guys. You could make the argument Chris Jenkins just from a run blocking standpoint or run defending standpoint, but Newton, 6'2", 295, NFL ready in my opinion. Football IQ is off the charts. Already a fantastic run defender, both with shooting gaps, but also using his strength to his advantage, keeping his eyes in the backfield, finding the ball carrier, finding the ball in general, and making a play on it. Refined hand usage, or you can nitpick, but there's not much that needs to be cleaned up or polished there. And an insane motor. Another one of those guys that's taking it up to the whistle and maybe finding a split second there afterwards. And has a pass rush plan too. That's the thing that stands out. Again, football IQ. This guy knows how to play the game of chess with an opposing offensive lineman. The only negative I have, literally looking at my notes right now, is he's 3-tech only. 6'2", 295. Unless he massively bulks up this year and those numbers change drastically, don't see him playing nose or shade nose. Probably not as gifted an athlete to be able to kick out wide and do some stuff like that. Like Aditami Adibari, I know there's some kind of conversations. He went to a 4-3 team. Could he play maybe inside on base, outside, passing situations? I don't see that being an opportunity for Jerzon Newton. He's going to play 3-tech, and that's going to be his home. So that's really the only negative I have for his game, though. Let's go ahead and move on to these honorable mentions. And we'll start with a guy that has no shortage of hype right now, Michael Hall Jr. And maybe you're a big Michael Hall Jr. guy, and you're like, he's an honorable mention. He's not in the top 5. Could have easily flipped him in a row, but decided to go with the row just because I think his run defending upside just a little bit more. For Hall, that's my major concern, 6'2", 290, and yeah, it shows in the run game for sure. And I'm also really worried about that arm length. We might have a Kalijah Kancey thing kind of all over again. But then, on that note, let's flip over to the positives, because they are very similar to what Kalijah Kancey had working for him. Insane movement skills for a 3-tech. I mean, this guy, first step off the line of scrimmage, is uber explosive, one of the best in this IDL class that I've scouted so far. Hand usage, he fires, gets into your chest faster than you can blink a lot of times, and he's quick from that point on. And also the feet too. Like sometimes we get caught off and what's that first step, and then what are his hands doing? But even after that, keeps the feet chopping. And he's very quick, being able to move left to right. So an advantage of him being 290, he's got that lateral leg up on some of the other guys in this class for sure. And because of his small stature, another one of these guys that, because he's a little bit on the shorter side, he wins the leverage battle. Like this guy gets under tackles and gets under guards all day. But again, I just worry about what it's going to look like in run defense. I do have to throw the caveat in. There have been reports that he was playing banged up last year and was still pretty productive, specifically as a pass rusher. But now that he's fully healthy, maybe there is more there as a run defender, and I'll be able to change my mind. So I'm really excited to see what he looks like this year at Ohio State. Not the only Buckeye we'll talk about on this list. Then on the other side, the complete opposite of Michael Hall Jr. is Nazir Stackhouse. This guy is... I'd be shocked if we see any growth from him as a pass rusher. I never say never, right? I just don't think that's his game, and I don't think that's his MO, and I don't think that's what George is really focusing, coaching him on. They're saying, hey, Stackhouse, you're 6'3", 320. He might be even bigger than that. I want you to plug the middle, eat up space. You are a new Jordan Davis. You just don't have the freaky athleticism to maybe see what else could be there as a pass rusher. We'll kind of start on the negatives here, because one major negative is not a whole lot of playing time through the first 3 years he's had with Georgia, but it's totally explainable, so it's not really even a con. Maybe it's like a mixed point there. It's because he's been playing behind first-rounder Jordan Davis, first-rounder Devontae Wyatt, and top 10 pick Jalen Carter. I mean, those are the guys he's been, no pun intended here, stacked up behind. So yeah, it's been light to see him on the field. And again, I don't think he's going to be any much in the way of being a pass rusher at the next level. I think he is solely a 2-down, pure nose tackle, eat up space, clog the middle, and help us improve our run defense. Like, ideal world, the Chargers get the draft in the 4th round, because every year we're talking about how the Chargers need to clean up the middle of their defensive line and get better against the run. So I don't think he'll go anything before. Honestly, right now it's hard for me to imagine going anything before like pick 100, when you are kind of like, okay, cool, we need a run stopping D tackle. Let's find that specialist. That's when we start to get into that Stackhouse, consideration. But that being said, like, if he gets drafted by a contender, like a Los Angeles Chargers team that is looking for that specific role, he'll become a really good player for a team that's vying for postseason runs, Super Bowl contention, and serve an important role for something that they need to get better at. So, or even like a Cincinnati, like just using another AFC team. DJ Reader can't play forever. Could he be the guy they draft and have the thought in mind that eventually replaces him? Just throwing out 2 teams, just arbitrary, that first came to mind. So that's his role. He's a run stopper. Not going to get much more else out of him. Then we get Dante Corleone, who was the highest graded run defender in PFF's system, while also having a pass rush win rate at 15.2%. Which you say that, and it's like, why is he on the honorable mentions? Why is he not number 5? And I kind of toyed with the idea. But the small school competition, I think, is a big reason why. but does have good size, 6'2", 320. And I do think the run defense, I think that translates to the NFL level. So it could be another guy that maybe at the next level he's only a 2-down run defender, and that's fine. Again, draft that specialist with that in mind and make sure the value matches up. He can serve an important role on a good team. I'm just really fascinated to see if he doubles down, if he can do what he did last year in a pass rush standpoint. Maybe there is something there. And then the other negative with that is he's only got the 1 year of playing time, which not like detrimental. That pass rush win rate ultimately might be a fluke. And not to say that I'm doubting him, but it might just be a once in a career type of occurrence. So if he does it again this year, then I'll be able to swallow those words and say, hey, maybe Corleone, maybe there is something more there with him as a pass rusher at the NFL level, and maybe he should shoot up this board and should be in that top 5 conversation. For right now, I definitely see the projectability of him being a good run defender. The pass protection side is where I'm like, I'm not so sure. And the last two guys we have to talk about are also big-time projections. Talik Williams as well as T'Vondre Sweat. Both guys are massive human beings. Williams, 6'3", 330. Sweat, 6'4", 340. Insane. So let's start with Williams. The number one thing that kind of jumped off the page for me was a much improved season as a tackler. Go back to 2021, missed tackle rate of almost 29%. That's way too high for someone who's a massive human being and should be there to stop the run. And then last year, all the way down to 5%. And that's a massive jump. And now, granted, I will say, he played like 150 snaps in 2021 and like 280 last year, which we're going to get into that when we get to the cons. Like 430 snaps, that could just be solely variance. Like it could come down to who they were playing that given week. But also another guy who was on the Bruce Feldman Freaks list at number 66 last year. So you see the athleticism and kind of the word of mouth being able to travel, because that's ultimately what Feldman's kind of leaning on, is what he's hearing and the numbers that he's being told by sources. And for what we have seen so far, got good eyes, can find the ball carrier, can find the ball in general and read and react to it. And then pretty good get off on the line of scrimmage, given that he's 330 pounds and has very powerful hands. He definitely has the strength that would match up with someone that big. So then getting over to the cons, 434 career snaps. We just don't know really what we're going to get. That's just too small of a sample size to really glean from what he actually is. And I could see a world where Michael Hall Jr. is the pass rush guy there in the interior, and Williams is a high-level run defender to keep him clean. Like, I could totally see that. But I could also see a world where Williams is a massive human being, clean up his tackling. He's going to be good against the run. And then we see that athleticism really shine. And not to call him Jordan Davis, because Jordan Davis really is kind of Planet Theory 1 of 1. But maybe could have that type of meteoric rise, because it's like, dude, he is huge, and he's a good athlete, and he's on that Bruce Feldman freak list. Okay, cool. We're starting to see that pass rush upside this year. Maybe he could be a guy who sneaks into that, I don't want to say late first round, but it wouldn't shock me. But then the last kind of note I have here is it's flashes. The good stuff with Williams, it comes and goes. And when it comes to him being a pass rusher, he wins with his power. He wins because he's 330 pounds and he's a very strong guy. He has no counter. So if we see that change a little bit, the athleticism, we see him add a swim, we see him add a spin move, something along those lines, because again, that will showcase the athleticism. It's like, okay, he added something else to his game, specifically as a pass rusher. Now you have to consider where that changes his draft stock and how high up the board he could potentially get drafted. Then switching over to Sweat, despite the size, he's kind of like the counter of what we've been talking about. A lot of these small guys like Hall and like Jenkins, who are maybe shorter end of the spectrum for IDL guys. So they win the leverage battle. Sweat at 6'4", 340 wins the leverage battle more than he has any right to, honestly. And he's also got 4 years of really solid run-stopping production. So you kind of know what you're getting. Like, I feel like he's a solid, stable prospect. And honestly, 340, he might be even a little bit bigger than that. Wouldn't be surprised if he 348, 350, somewhere in that neighborhood. But yeah, another guy that's just going to eat up space, eat up blocks, and stop the run. Getting over to the pass rush side, he is a straight line mover. He does not do much left to right. And he is very raw and inconsistent as a pass rusher. And a lot of it, kind of like Williams, he wins with his size, his mass, and his strength. If he can change that, we're on to something here. And he is playing for Texas, and obviously not a whole lot of, massive playing size, but Keandre Coburn, drafted last year, as well as one of my favorite players in the NFL draft from last year, drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, Moro Ojomo, who was one of my favorite steals. And for him to go to Philadelphia, I'm actually really excited to see. It may take a little bit for him to get in that rotation, but once he gets that chance, I'm really excited to see what he could do with it, plus that coaching staff and what they could do with them. But he's been playing behind some other guys that ultimately are now playing in the league, which is a good sign. So hopefully Sweat can kind of follow suit. Again, not a guy that I think is going to, unlike Williams, I don't think Sweat's going to have the off chance of shooting up into that late first round, second round type of conversation. Sweat to me is pretty solidly going to be a day 3 guy. But again, kind of like Corleone and Stackhouse, where it's like, hey, we need to improve our run defense. We need a big nose tackle to stuff up the middle. You know what you're getting out of Sweat. He's done it at the college level. You can feel confident that he'll be able to do it at the NFL level as well. Guys, that's going to do it for my way too early 2024 interior defensive line rankings. Talking about the big uglies, let me hear your list down below in the comments section. 5 up to 1, as well as some honorable mentions, especially if there's someone I left off this list that you think, TJ, how in the world did you not talk about this guy? You're crazy. Let me hear that name down below in the comments section. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to see more draft content like this. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I am signing off.